A wide range of sophisticated and cutting-edge technologies are used by police to assist them with their work, both in crime detection and prevention, as well as ensuring the safety and security of the community. Many of the uses of technology you'll see in this section will be common to police forces up and down the country. I think after looking at the videos, you'll never think about a police car in the same way again.
I'm PC Gervais Wright. I'm stationed at Rayleigh Road Policing Unit, which a lot of you might recognise as being a traffic police officer. My job title enables me to deal with everything that happens on the roads. With this particular car that you see behind me, we have an ANPR device, which stands for Automatic Number Plate Recognition. We have a breath test screening device. We have a tint man device and a laser speed detection device. The automatic number plate recognition device works in conjunction with two cameras, one that we have pointing out at the front of the police vehicle and one that we have pointing out the rear. What it does is actually reads the number plates of any passing vehicles, puts those number plates into the computer system and advises us if there's any report against that vehicle. For example, if the car's been used in crime, or whether the vehicle's been stolen, or if it doesn't have any tax or insurance, it lets us know and we can deal with it appropriately.
Okay, I'm now going to go through the automatic number plate recognition, otherwise known as the ANPR, which is this system here. Before we use the system, it kind of works like a computer. We have a keyboard which you enter our log-on details. Once we're logged on, the screen then works and goes through a series of tests. It works basically by picking up indexes and registration plates of vehicles travelling either the same direction or in the opposite direction. It picks these registrations up by this camera up here. If we want it to catch the vehicles in front of us, we can manually operate it so we have it facing exactly directly in front. For vehicles travelling in the opposite direction, we then turn it over and it will record each vehicle which is travelling in the opposite direction. Once it picks up a vehicle which has a record against it, an alarm will sound off in the back of the vehicle and it will then flash the details of that vehicle up on this screen here with a typed message as to exactly what's wrong with the vehicle.
The ANPR equipment that we use is the best piece of equipment that the police have provided us with for some time now, because it does help us to detect crime with the moving criminal, where people have stolen cars that perhaps we wouldn't normally stop for high value cars. And as I say, it helps us to combat crime like no other piece of equipment that we've ever had before. The speed detection device that I have with me today is called a Laser LTI 2020, which, as the name suggests, works by way of a laser beam. You look through the sight, it has little red dots which you would direct at a vehicle, you'd pull the trigger and it would come back with how fast the car is travelling and at the distance it was from you when you pulled the trigger.
Okay, this is a Laser LTI 2020, which is a Home Office approved device for measuring the speed of a vehicle. It works with a telescopic sight, and within that sight when you look down you see a little red dot. If you point that dot on, it will give you the reading of the vehicle. You turn it, aim it at the vehicle. Once you've got the dot fixed, you squeeze the trigger and that will give you the reading of the vehicle speed.
The laser device is a lot more efficient than the device that we used to use, which worked by way of radar, and that works by sending out a radar beam at a 45-degree angle, which could pick up other vehicles or it could bounce off other signs. So by having a laser, it's 100% accurate and you can't go wrong with it. It is a much more reliable device. Breath kit that we're using at the moment, it works off of Duracell batteries. We use a brand new mouthpiece for each person that we check. We'll set up the device, it runs through a series of checks to make sure there's no alcohol in the device before we use it, and once everything's all in order, we'll ask someone to blow into the tube and it comes out with a reading, and the readings will either be 0, pass, warn or fail.
Okay, this is a alcometer, which is a Home Office approved device for measuring the amount of alcohol on someone's breath, if any at all. To work it, basically we put the mouth tube into the machine. As soon as that goes on, the machine starts to calibrate itself. It shows the date, the time and the test number. The machine will then perform a series of tests ensuring that there's no alcohol in its current system at the moment, which is what it's doing now. As soon as it flashes up test, the machine's ready to be carried out with a breath test.
The latest breath test device that we use does seem to be a little bit more accurate, but it also enables us to download the information onto a computer database so that we can record how many samples have been taken during our breath test campaigns, which are in the summer and December months. The tint device that we have with us is called a tint man, and its basic role is to measure how much light is received through the window of a car. It has a light which is pretty much like a torch you'd put on one side of the window. It has a receiver that you'd place on the other side. They're connected magnetically, and it just literally reads how much light is passed through that glass.
I'm here to talk to you about the Tintman photo-optic window tint meter and how it works. Basically, it's a measuring device used to measure the amount of light transferred through a glass panel in a vehicle. Before we use the machine, we have to calibrate it to ensure it's working. By doing this, we hold the button down here and we need to see a reading of 100 on the digital display. If it's slightly out, we then use a pen here to adjust that to get it onto the accurate reading of 100.0. Once we have the machine on the reading, we then use the sensors here, which work basically by transferring light from one end to the other, which is how we get the reading of how much light is being transferred through a glass panel. Before we use the machine, we use the sample piece of glass here. And this sample piece of glass is telling me that I need to see a reading on the machine of 58.7. We allow 0.5% either side of that reading to ensure its accuracy. And the machine tells us that that's reading fine and that's accurate and ready to use. We then put the equipment onto the vehicle. Every panel of glass in the door in the front of the vehicle has to allow through 70% of light. So we put the sensors on either side again. And basically I'd expect to see 70% plus on the digital reading. As you can see, that's allowing through 72+%.
This piece of equipment is better for checking the tints on windows. It seems to be more of a trend these days that people are placing tints on the windows. The actual legislation goes back to 1988, but the equipment has only recently come out. And that's purely because people are tinting their windows more these days than they ever used to. And it's the only piece of equipment that we have for measuring how dark those windows are. In relation to protecting the public, there is a limit to how dark the windows on a vehicle are allowed to be. We were having problems where cars were pulling out of junctions, and because the windows were too dark, you couldn't see the pedal cycle or the motorcyclist coming along, and that was causing an accident. So it is imperative that we make sure the tints on windows aren't too dark. On a day-to-day basis, we find that we're having to take a lot more equipment out in the vehicles. Some of the equipment is fixed already in the cars, but the other things like the tint man, the breathalyzer and speed detection device means that when you go out to the car, you are having to carry a lot of equipment. And of course, to enable you to use that equipment, it means increased training. That may mean a day's training, or it may mean a week's training at our headquarters in Chelmsford. Essex as a force is becoming more and more led by intelligence, which means that the amount of intelligence you put into the systems is directly relative to the amount that you get out. For example, there was a murder investigation recently where the person gave an alibi as to their location, but because their vehicle had been seen driving through the ANPR device, we could actually place them at a different part of the country which negated their alibi. A lot of the equipment that we have available to us now has actually been an improvement on any equipment that we've had in the past. But I do find with the ANPR reader that the information that is sent to us has come via the DVLA, which may mean that by the time it gets to us it's 5 or 6 weeks out of date, which can present a problem. That is the only thing that I would change.